We're at Africa Tech Festival 2025, and from Google South Africa, Sipho Mtombeni is joining us after what was a very insightful session where you and fellow panelists were grappling with how do we close the gap effectively, and you closed off with a fantastic summation that says, we have the tool in our hands. How do we make sure that anyone who's using it knows that there's AI there? How do we achieve that?
Well, that's the $1 million question, right? I think for me, it is really about making sure that we can make the technology more accessible. We do need to make sure that in our communications, in our different strategies, as we're training young people, we are giving them the understanding of the power that they have in their hands. Smartphones are not just about social media, but there's a lot that can be achieved just through that access, through that tool. And I think it's really about just driving that message home on a day-to-day basis.
A lot of focus at this festival this year has been around AI and how context matters. So if we take AI generated, designed in the global north and try to apply it in the global south, you lose some of the nuance, some of the meaning, some of the translation and all of that. What is Google South Africa doing to help address that?
Sure. So, I mean, that's one thing that we are quite understanding about, that we understand that our technology is not going to be able to be applicable everywhere. That's why we partner quite a lot on the continent with many different companies, different stakeholders. We work, for instance, with Masakane to bring AI to 40 African languages currently. We've given them a grant from our google.org to make sure that they're using a lot of the technology that we have, but making it more accessible to the African continent by spreading it to 40 other languages. But we work with a lot of technologists and other companies on the continent to make sure that they take the tools that are available, open source, but also making sure that they're solving for problems on the continent. So that is a very true thing, and it's one of the things I mentioned on the panel, that we don't expect that people should take technologies that are made in the north and just kind of copy-paste it into Africa. It is going to need those African technologists and African engineers to be able to then take that, what's been developed, but adapt it, fix it, make it better, for the African continent. And the one thing that's great about it is that once they've done that, and this is what Africa is known for, once we've fixed it and made it better on Africa, we can sell it back to the world, right? Yeah.
I imagine from a linguistic and language skills point of view, that's easy to get, right? I speak Xhosa,
really.
that I'm there. Is it?
No, it's
Because
not.
I would have thought that the challenge would have been finding talent then that's able to work with the technology.
So the difficulty with a lot of the languages in Africa, they're not as codified as some of the Western languages. So African culture, a lot of our stories, a lot of our conversations, and a lot of the culture is passed down from mouth to mouth. It is an oral culture. So now what we have to do is, before we even get to the technology, we actually have to work with linguists, right, to now codify language. One of the things that we just recently published was a glossary of AI terms. So we took 100 AI terms. So like, what is AI in Xhosa? What is AI in isiZulu? And we've had to work with organizations like Pansal in order to be able to get linguists to make those translations and find the right words to be able to then put it into a codified method. So before we get to the technology, we've actually had to start conversations with linguists and bring it to that. And that's just the nature of the kind of African culture, African languages. The technology is actually the easy part. You plug it in and then it just goes.
Very interesting. Which then I imagine means that the voice prompters are going to become important, right? Because some of the people then engaging with the technology might not be able to read.
Exactly. And this is, again, a point I raised on the panel, was that with the high levels of illiteracy that we have on the continent, or people who are just not able to kind of engage in English or write out prompts in the traditional way that you might think, we need it. And this is why those projects that I mentioned, like Masakane one, are going to be important, because we need to be able to give access to Ugogo sitting in KZN somewhere, and she's be able to interact with her phone just by talking to it. And that's, again, one of the ways that we're using AI to provide access to technology for a lot more people.
Sounds like you're having a lot of fun.
It's quite a good time right now. Yeah.
Super. Thank you very much.
you.
Enjoy the rest of
Right.
your festival. Thanks.